When I was working with the Mayan shamans in Guatemala, I found that they were very good at knowing when something's going to happen, but they weren't that great at knowing what was going to happen. They're very fastidious about calculating their dates and the importance of different transitions, and they stick to their guns, but they don't necessarily know what that means. And they get kind of hazy and fuzzy and a little bit contradictory when you say, well, okay, you know, December 21st, 2012 is important. Why exactly? And, you know, I mean, I got some answers, but I came up with a lot more questions. Then it occurred to me that our idea of apocalypse is shaped by the book of Revelation far more than anything else. For 2,000 years it has really shaped the Western vision of what the end of it all might be. And that is very specific on what's going to happen. There's, you know, the seven seals, and there's the mark of the beast, and there's the war between good and evil, and all of that. But the when, they're pretty hazy on. Right in the middle there's an extra 1,000 years that gets thrown in, and, you know, not sure when it's over. So I decided to go and see if I could reconcile the Mayan idea of when and the book of Revelation idea of what's going to happen. So I went to Patmos, which is a remote Greek island where John, as in the Gospel according to John, was exiled, and where he apparently wrote the book of Revelation. And he lived in a cave and wrote this book over the course of about 2 years. This was the terms of his exile. He had to live in a cave. Or I guess he was given nothing but the cave to live in. And I really didn't like the whole idea of the trip because I don't like caves. And to travel from Los Angeles all the way to a remote Greek island to go and spend time in a cave just seemed really annoying. I'd want to spend it on the beach, you know, go to a taverna. I got in this cave where he had lived and where he wrote Revelation, and I wouldn't leave. I couldn't leave. I loved it. I was in love with this cave, and I was sitting on this rickety, stiff-backed little wooden chair, which normally I would just stand because I can't stand uncomfortable chairs. And I settled into it as though it were a lazy boy recliner, and I just loved being in this cave. Then I realized, you know, I think I was getting a little high. And there is a high on cave gas. And there is a phenomenon that spelunkers are aware of, that if the carbon dioxide levels exceed more than 2 or 3%, you can get high in a cave. So I thought, I solved the mystery of the book of Revelation. John was high. He was on cave gas, and he had all these weird visions, and he wrote them down. You know, he spent 2 years in that darn place. And I thought, okay, I've debunked Revelation. This is great. But then it occurred to me that I hadn't debunked anything. I do believe I discovered something essential about the creative process of Revelation, our greatest apocalyptic masterpiece. But it didn't debunk it at all, because if you think about it, the Prophet Muhammad received the Quran in a cave, and he went into that cave either, depending which tradition you believe, either as illiterate or semi-literate at best, and came out producing the greatest masterwork in the history of the Arabic language. So, and he did it all in a cave. So if it's good enough for Muhammad and good enough for John, it's darn well good enough for me. And so after they would always kick me out of the cave at the end of the day, and they'd let me stay even while they're cleaning and closing up. It was very nice folks. But I wanted to get to know that there's a monastery that was built kind of in honor of the cave about 1,000 years ago, the monastery of St. John. And the abbot of that monastery is considered the world's leading expert on the book of Revelation. He knows it by heart. He has written extensively on it in classical Greek, which I cannot read. And so I tried to get an audience with him. And it was very difficult. I made a tactical error. I mentioned to the subordinate who had been sent to basically vet me that I'd written a book about Gaia, the Greek goddess of the earth, thinking that I would get a little brownie points because Gaia is a Greek goddess. I was in Greece. I'd written about it, but no. All they got was some goddess worshiper from California wants to talk to the abbot of the monastery, which is, you know, not the credential that you really want to present. But the abbot was a gracious man and kind, and sort of happened in on conversation, and I suppose you could say took pity on me. And so I tried to get him to say, where in the progress of the book of Revelation story are we, if anywhere? And after much cajoling and wheedling and showing that I was sincere, He said, you know the portion of the story where the mark of the beast, where the 666 is stamped upon the unfortunate multitudes? That's a key transition point. It's the beginning of the end of the book of Revelation. That's where we are. And I said, well, what mark of the beast? I don't have any tattoos or anything. He said, no, it's microchips. Don't carry them on your body. Certainly don't let them be put into your body. It's the transition towards being subordinated to the materialist atheist culture. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know, there's something to that. There's something to the fact that we are monitorable, predictable, and ultimately influenceable by these chips and these devices and the people who control them. And even if it has nothing to do with the book of Revelation progress, it's a good idea. It's a very good idea to think 2, 3, 4 times before we allow ourselves to be so completely understood and ultimately controlled by these things. So, you know, a lot of trying to understand the meaning of apocalypse in 2012 is a grail quest. And by that I mean, you look for the Holy Grail, you may not find it, but you end up finding something that's worthwhile. I looked for the Holy Grail of December 21st, 2012, what it meant, and found the threat to the electrical power grid by the solar blast, by the explosions coming from the sun. I don't know if I found what I was looking for, but I found something very valuable. And it's also the case with the book of Revelation. I do believe that there's serious attention has to be paid to protecting our privacy and security and our freedom of action and will from being monitored by these devices. It's been a great process